We are already live. We'll start in 2 minutes. The participants are joining. So let us start. Hello and good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to our new series, Attention to Emotion. As few of our attendees might be knowing that recently we have concluded Attention to Nutrition, and this new series is going to talk about attention to emotion is very important series when it comes to parents, because we all as a parent love our child. When I say love, love is just a word without emotion. So everything what we speak in a day-to-day life, so if you will consciously observe, there is an emotion attached to that. Without emotion, whatever we speak, it will not have any meaning for that matter. So to make our life meaningful, we need to have a lot of emotions, and how to manage those emotions is very important. Nowadays, every child is learning coding. So as that of coding, learning emotions, how to manage emotions, this is also very important. And we as a parent will be in the driving seat to manage the right emotion, to show the right guidance to the kids of alpha generation and even generation Z as well. So today we have two panelists with us, and both these panelists are working in the field of psychiatry. So I'll start introducing them with Dr. Amit Dharmadhikari. Dr. Amit Dharmadhikari is a consultant psychiatrist practicing at Manodaya Neuropsychiatric Hospital and Ravinandan Rehabilitation and De-Addiction Center in Kalyan West. He has completed his MBBS and then pursued his MD in psychiatry from BJ Medical College and Sasun Hospital, Pune. He worked as an assistant professor in Department of Psychiatry at TNMC and Nair Hospital, Mumbai. His special interest in the field of de-addiction psychiatry. With this in mind, he has come up with the Rehabilitation and De-Addiction Center for the first time in Kalyan. I must congratulate you for that, sir. And he's a director at the center. He has his research paper publications in the Indian Journal of Psychiatry and other journals as well. He has been invited as a speaker in the conference of Indian Psychiatric Society. He has been conducted multiple stress management workshops for schools, colleges, companies, and doctors. He has conducted workshops on de-addiction for general public and depression, dementia for senior citizens, and he has conducted awareness programs in villages as a part of Gav Tithe Mansopchar. So I welcome you, sir, for this Attention to Emotion series, and today is the first webinar of that. We do have Dr. Priyanka Dharmadhikari. Both of them are husband and wife, and they have really proved that to support each other in every step of life, be it personal or the professional. So Dr. Priyanka Dharmadhikari is a consultant psychiatrist practicing at Manodaya Child Guidance Clinic and Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Kalyan. She works mainly in the field of child and adolescent mental health. She has completed her MBBS and then pursued her MD in psychiatry from Topiwala National Medical College and DYL Nair Hospital, Mumbai. Following which, she worked at Sion Hospital. She has published and presented papers on autism and media portrait of suicide at the Indian Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health Conference and Bombay Psychiatric Society meet as well. She has been invited as a speaker at the West Zone CME on mental health issues in the children. She has conducted awareness workshops for school teachers, principals, parents to make them aware about scholastic backwardness and behavioral issues in the children. She has also conducted stress management workshops for doctors, lawyers, and college students. So I welcome you, ma'am, for this session of Attention to Emotion.
Thank you.
Before we go ahead, we have attendees here. We will first flash the first poll question so that we will understand the opinion of each and every. So can we have the first poll on the screen? So the first question is, how important is emotional development of a child for you? So a few of them are parents, doctors, but all of you can answer how important is the emotional development of a child. The first option is very important, less important, or not important. So you have another 30 seconds to answer the question, and then we can go ahead about it. So I would request everyone to please answer. This is very good. Almost everyone has answered that. It is very important. That is the reason all of them are here in this particular webinar. So I must congratulate you to all of you to understand the importance. And to move ahead, I would ask Dr. Priyanka to answer what are the emotions and how these different emotions occur in the children and how the development of these emotions happen in the childhood.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. And first of all, I'm very happy that so many people have participated in this program and they are so keen on understanding about the emotions in children. In the changing times, as we all know, in the last few years, there have been a lot of changes in everything, in every sphere of life. For example, in the last few years, there have been nuclear families. And recently, we are moving actually towards families with single parents, unfortunately. In the case of children also who are used to staying with joint families, now they have to having to stay with people who are very close to them, but only one parent probably, a single parent or both parents are there who are working. So with all these things, there is a lot of emotional turmoil that goes on in the life of children. Along with that, the increasing use of technology has isolated people. So most of the people are using mobile phones for such a long time that communication has also reduced. So today, that's why we have taken this topic of focusing on emotions, how to understand the child's emotions, how to communicate with the child. So basically, everyone wants to know what are emotions. Emotions are a reaction. Okay, it's a psychological state, and they are basically mental reactions to situations or stimuli. So what are these stimuli? Like give an example. So for example, if you've gone for an interview, you know there is an interview. You get an input that the interviewer might ask you difficult questions, or you get an input that there are many people who are competing with me for the interview who are very well qualified. This is the input that you're getting. This is how you're looking at the situation. And then your reaction can be a physiological reaction where you have a pounding heart, you have tremors, or you feel shaky and you feel sweaty. And at the same time, there is a behavioral response. You say whether I should sit for the interview or should I just move, I should run away from the interview. Okay, so this is the reaction, this is emotion. And being afraid of the interview would be the subjective experience. So emotion is comprised of all these particular points. And one important thing, why should we know the basics of emotions? The reason is that whenever we have an emotion, we need to understand that our emotion can be modified. So in such a situation, before responding to the situation, the choice is yours. When you looked at the situation from the point of view that the interview is going to be difficult, that is the time you felt scared. But if you look at it from another point of view, I have cracked so many exams, I have given so many interviews before. Probably this interview is also another interview which I can crack. So this is how basically emotions it's necessary to understand emotions. We need to understand that emotions can be modified if we modify our thinking methods. So I'll start with my presentation now. 1 minute, I'll just yeah. So in today's topic, we need to understand that in childhood, how does emotional development occur? Okay, so we all know that there is a nature and nurture theory. Okay, nature is the genetics by which we are born, the genes that we get from our parents, and nurture is the nurture, the upbringing of our parents and other people in our lives. So in emotional development also this plays an important role. One is temperament. Each child has his own personality. हम सबकी एक personality होती है. वैसे child also has his own personality or his own style. Okay, that is what is called as temperament. And the another thing is, as I said, nurture. But in this case, it's attachment. I'll explain to you what is attachment. In the first few years of life, the only person that the child knows is his mother or his primary caregiver. So the child slowly develops attachment towards that primary person who is taking care of him, who is paying attention to his feeding needs, who is changing his diapers, who is nursing him. So that's how the child slowly develops a bond with that person. Mostly it's his mother. So this is how slowly, with an interaction of the child's temperament, that is the child's personality, and the mother's bond towards the child and the child's attachment towards the mother, both these go hand in hand and lead to the child's emotions, development of the child's emotions. This is what we call goodness of fit. What is goodness of fit? I'll give you an example. In our OPD, there was a mother who had come with two children. She said one child, the older one, was so easy to manage. I didn't have to do much. All I had to do was he used to call me, I used to give him food, I used to take care of him, I used to teach him, and everything went on very smoothly. I'm following the same parenting techniques for my younger child. But my younger child is so difficult to manage. He is so active, super active. He's so playful and he gets angry so fast. I'm using the same techniques. Then why so? That is what we call goodness of fit, because the child's temperament is different here. Okay, so the behavior that the mother, the techniques that the mother has to use to manage this child will differ, will be different. And once she uses different techniques for this child, what will happen is there'll be a good bonding, there'll be a good development of the child's behavior. Okay, so this is that the mother and the child should fit each other that way. So this is how the emotional development begins. And I was talking about temperament. So doctors and parents have to know what is the temperament. When children come to our OPDs or when we have children at home, some children are so easy. They are so friendly. They have a specific routine of sleeping, of waking up. Even if they cry, they can be easily consoled. They are overall very calm. So these are easy children. The temperament is easy. Some of them are very difficult to handle. Difficult to handle as in their routines are not fixed. They keep crying for a longer time. They are extremely active. And sometimes they get upset very easily and they react too much. So these children are difficult to handle. So we call them difficult temperament children. And a group of children are slow to warm up. They require a long time to mingle with people. They are a little shy. They are a little withdrawn from people. So this is the group which is a little shy or introvert group, I would say. So these are the three temperaments with which children are born. There are multiple ways of assessing temperaments, but I have given you the most simple ones here. So as I said, attachment develops when the mother is consistently present. The child cries, the mother should be available. The child has done potty, the mother should come immediately and change his diapers. There should be a timely response. If that happens, then the attachment is secure. In some cases with working women, what happens is the child cries but mother comes late. She's not available at that time. So that inconsistency might lead to insecure attachment. The child in future might have some emotional problems. It's a theory. At the same time, in secure attachment, it is seen that the child easily develops trust in the mother. He develops trust in other people also. At the same time, he develops confidence and he is able to regulate his emotions. If he cries, the mother is always there. He knows that there is someone who's going to come and calm me down. So this initial emotional regulation later on is manifested into emotional regulation adulthood also. And then he is independent to explore whatever he wants because he knows I have a basic attachment figure who's always there for my help. Okay. So this is the attachment theory that I've told. In mothers who have physical ailments, who are ill or who are mentally ill, who are depressed, sometimes they're not available for the child when the child is an infant. Attachment develops right from when the child is an infant up to the age of 2 years. Once the child becomes 2 years, he knows even if the mother is not available, he has a picture of her in his mind. So if she is not available, she must be somewhere, she must be working. Okay, so over the period of 1 to 2 years, slowly attachment develops properly. And if attachment is secure, as you understood, there is a lot of trust that develops in the child. If it's not secure, If the mother is working very heavy duty or she's mentally ill, then insecure patterns of attachment develop, and children might be prone for some emotional issues in future. So these are the basic emotions that you can see: fear, disgust, anger. I'll tell you how it is seen in children. Limbic system, as you know, is the seat where emotions are processed. So for everyone, limbic system is a part inside the brain which receives input from outside. Okay, so if anyone shouts at me, that input goes inside the limbic system. The limbic system finds out the meaning of it, and then I will respond to the person who has shouted at me. And how will I respond? Depending on the past memories that I have about a similar situation. So as I said, how does a child develop? He does have, even the child has emotions. Huh? Now you can see the child might be upset, the child cries, there is social smile at 2 months. He starts recognizing familiar faces and smiles. Fear also is there. Okay, so as I said, happiness is there. At the same time, fear also he experiences. We were talking about that attachment phase with the mother. That is a time when the child might have anxiety towards unknown people, strangers. If the mother goes away, in this process of attachment, which has not fully formed, the child might feel afraid. He might miss his mother. He might cry when his mother is not around. Okay, so this is separation anxiety. And as a child grows, everyone must know, all parents must know that there are some changes in the child's behavior and emotions, which can be normal. So the child knows that the mother is outside somewhere. Okay, he has an internal image of the mother. As the child goes, he's able to talk, he's able to walk, he's able to eat independently. He can help being dressed. So that's why he starts becoming a little independent. And that is the time when he says no to things. So when mother says, should I make food for you? Will you eat? He says, no, I don't want to eat. For everything, he'll say no. Okay. So that is a way of expressing independence in the child. He becomes very possessive. This is mine. I'll not share this with any child. That doesn't mean the child will never share. It's just a passing phase. At this time, the child can only think about himself. He cannot think about other people around him. Okay. What the other person feels, the child will not know. So he's egocentric. And in this particular period, in his preschool, the child becomes very naughty, he loses temper, he tests our limits, he throws tantrums, which is normal. To a certain extent, it is normal. In most of the children, all these things are seen. They throw things, they lie on the floor. So all these things are normal. But if they exceed in the sense what? If they exceed the limits, the child is constantly throwing tantrums, or the child is crying for a very long time. The child is very irritable. Okay, he is extremely naughty, he's very unpredictable. Then these can be signs even in toddlers and preschoolers that probably they are not, they are either hyperactive or they are probably going to have some problems in future because of early childhood problems during attachment, etc. In middle childhood, the main thing in the child's mind is that I want to do something in life. I have some goals and I want to struggle for my goals. Okay. So that is what we call industrious. The child becomes very industrious. If the child gets a reward, if the teacher says you've done very well, if the mother says very good beta, you've done so well in studies, you're such an all-rounder child, or even if he gets little praise, that is the time when his self-esteem grows. But if there is a lot of criticism in the house, or if there are a lot of problems in the house, or if he has academic problems, problems in his studies, then his self-esteem may not be established well. That is a time when he might feel inferior to others. Okay, so this was the point in middle childhood between till the age of 12 years. And then in the adolescent age group, what happens? That is with teenagers. So teenagers have to face a variety of challenges like changing bodily structures, peer pressure, okay? And along with that, problems in their studies also might emerge at this age because studies also increase. There are problems related to orientation. कि मैं किसको पसंद करता हूँ? Do I like a boy or am I attracted to a girl? Am I attracted to the same gender person or am I attracted to the opposite gender person? That also is a problem and that might create some turmoil in the mind of the person. At this time, it is very essential to have self-control. So he struggles with that also. He has imagined relationships in his mind sometimes. He's struggling to focus in his studies. At the same time, he has to control all his other urges of enjoyment. That is a big struggle for most of the teenagers. And if he'll be able to cope with him, with all these problems, if he has healthy adult guidance and relationships. So I think about parenting styles, we could discuss about this later. We could discuss about emotional issues that children face. So right now, what I discussed was the emotional development in children. Okay, how normal emotions develop and what are abnormal emotions. We'll learn from Dr. Amit. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for telling us what are the emotion development and how does it happen at different stages of childhood. And before we invite Dr. Amit, we have one more poll question. We have one more poll before we go ahead. So I would request all the attendees to answer this poll. So do you observe the emotional development consciously for your child? I'll read it again. In case of your child and at the growing age, do you observe the emotional development consciously? You just need to answer yes or no. Are we conscious enough to see the emotional development of a child? We have 30 seconds to answer this question. So the results are 79% of us observe the emotional development consciously, whereas 21% says they don't observe it very consciously. Or at times, in the quest of running behind cognition, other development, the emotional development is taking backseat in case of 21%. So to know about the emotional problems from Dr. Priyanka, we got to know how does the emotion gets developed in the different stages of childhood. But in case of if there is any problem, what should be done and how to identify that problem, how to have the awareness as a parent that this is the problem behavior or this is the normal behavior, because there is a very thin line in between the normal emotion and the emotion which requires the consultation. So to know about it, I would invite Dr. Amit to take us through the presentation. Sir.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
So even doctors can have overwhelming emotions. Everyone has observed, everyone has witnessed that during this COVID-19 pandemic. Even the doctors and everyone had very overwhelming emotions. We have seen our near and dear ones going through a lot of stress of this COVID, this fear, this anxiety. Everyone has witnessed, and that is why I think every one of us has a better understanding of emotions now. So that is a better part of the pandemic, and I'm very happy to see that everyone here, the attendants, are aware of the emotional development. The responses are very much in favor of our psychiatrists because they are very much aware of the emotional development. They are look for the second question also. There was a very positive response. So I'll be talking about the emotional issues in children. So yes, yes. So emotional issues in children. Uh, in adults, as the emotional issues are very obvious, because in adults, if someone is going through some stress, anxiety or depression, they generally visit a psychiatrist or their doctor, and they tell them that I'm going through so and so problem, and please help me out. I'm going through low mood, I'm having disturbed sleep, my appetite has decreased, I'm having repetitive negative thoughts, I'm having palpitations, I'm having tremulousness, I'm not able to concentrate on work, and so help me out. But in children, these signs may not be so obvious, because in children, emotional issues are there. They face emotional problems just like adults, but the emotional signs and symptoms are not obvious. What can be the symptoms? What can be signs in children of who are facing emotional problems. First and important is reduced interactions. A few years back, when there were no smartphones, parents used to tell the psychiatrists or the counselors that the child is not interacting with his friends, he is not interacting with the family members. But nowadays, the complaints are different. Parents many a times come to us and they tell us that the child is not verbally interacting with us in the family, but the child spends most of the time on smartphones, playing games or on social media or watching videos on YouTube. The child spends most of the time in the virtual world, so that can be one of the signs that the child is facing some emotional problems. So that can be a defense mechanism, and the child can spend excess time on smartphones. So reduce interaction verbally. Excessive crying or tearfulness, that is obvious in children who are up to 5 to 7 years, who are not able to express their feelings or emotions. So this is one of the signs. If the child is very cranky, is very tearful, so that is a sign that he may be going through some emotional problems. Nightmares, parents come to us that the child wakes up at midnight, he shouts, he screams, and he has a nightmare. He talks in sleep, he his sleep is disturbed. Normally, we don't see many children whose sleep is disturbed. So, child who is having a disturbed sleep is a sign that he is facing some emotional problems. He's going through some kind of stress. Repeated aches and pains. Children who are having repetitive backaches, headaches, they often visit many orthopedic doctors, neurologists with the same complaint. Even they visit ophthalmologists because they think that it can be some vision problem. But this kind of repetitive lower backache, neck pain, headache can be a sign that this can be somatic symptoms, somatic manifestation of stress disorders, anxiety and depression. Easy fatigability. The child is now not able to play like he used to play earlier. He is not able to concentrate in his studies. He is feeling less energy. So after ruling out all the organic conditions like anemia, thyroid, etc., we can, if everything is normal, maybe the child is going through some emotional problems. Decreased appetite, bowel upset, irritable bowel syndrome is one of the manifestation of stress level. So if the child is going through some anxiety or stress, so the child may manifest in the form of irritable bowel. He may have intermittent diarrhea or constipation. Psychogenic vomiting, that is one of the symptoms. Many times the child, after going through all the scopies, all the necessary investigations, but not finding any solution, they come to us and they, after the psychiatric sessions, after their consultation, we understand that the child was going through some problem. He was going through some stress at home or some other problems, because of which he had psychogenic vomiting. Episodes of fall or giddiness. Again, these children who have this kind of problems, uh, they manifest in the form of conversion reaction, not convulsion, but conversion reaction. This can be a hysterical symptom. There is a difference between hysteria and malingering. There is no motive, but the child is going through tremendous emotional stress, because of which the child is having repetitive falls. And the child parents many a times take these children to neurologist. They get all the investigations done, MRI, EEG, and all the investigations are done. And after the investigations are done, many a times these children are also put up on anti-epileptic medications, considering that they have epilepsy, but they don't have epilepsy. This kind of falls or giddiness can be a symptom of stress or anxiety or emotional issues. Bedwetting. So bedwetting is normal up to a particular age, 3 to 4 years, 5 years. But if it persists beyond a particular age, then we have to rule out that whether the child is going through some emotional problems. Many a times in children, bedwetting stops, but again after a few years of gap, again the bedwetting starts. So we have to rule out emotional issues, because one of the major causes of bedwetting in children, say about 8 to 10 years, is emotional problems. Thumb sucking, nail biting, clinging to their mother. In young children, this can be observed. Repeated negative thoughts. Nowadays, in this COVID-19 pandemic, we are coming across a lot of children who have this kind of negative thoughts. They are undergoing a lot of stress. Many have lost their near and dear ones, and because of that, they are having anxiety. They are having post-traumatic stress manifestations, acute stress reactions. because of which the child has this repetitive negative thoughts about COVID, death. It can be of any, the thoughts can be of any form. Poor school performance. Poor school performance, many a times parents bring the child to us for poor academic performance, that the child is not performing good in studies. But when we talk to the child was very good. The child, we come to know that the child was very good in studies up to a particular age group, but after that his academic performance started declining. And one of the reason of sudden decline in the academic performance can be emotional problems in that child. Then school refusal. Children who were attending their school regularly, who were attending their classes regularly, who were very much involved in the academics and non-academic events in the school, suddenly stop going to the school. And before going to school, they throw temper tantrums, they have headaches, they start crying, and it is very difficult to convince them to go to the school. So when they are brought to us, we have come to know that many a times these children are facing some emotional problems. So these can be the manifestations of emotional issues in children. This can be signs of emotional issues in children. So what are the reasons for emotional problems in children? The children's world is very limited. Like adults, we have our workplace, we have our secretive and non-secretive friends, we have our family members, we have our relatives, we have a lot of friends, we have a lot of people to interact with. But in children, their world is limited. Their world is limited to the home, their school, and their friends. So any changes in this particular environment can lead to emotional problems, emotional issues. So in the home environment, if the child has witnessed death or health problems in the family, child abuse, which is many a time non underrated and undiagnosed, single or separated parents, which is very common nowadays, family conflicts, a sudden change of family environment, like the child was staying in a joint family, but now they have shifted to a nuclear family. So the child was attached to their grandparents, uncle, aunties, and cousins, but because of change of from joint to nuclear family, the child is not in contact with their other family members. So adults easily get accustomed and adjusted to their environment, but for children it is very difficult to adjust to their surroundings, and they may face emotional problems. Alcohol dependence or any kind of addiction in a parent or any family member, and because of that domestic violence, abusive parenting, this can lead to emotional problems in children. Psychiatric problems in parents, many a times if one of the parents has schizophrenia or bipolar mood disorder and it is undiagnosed, and because of which the parents are neglectful, their parents are not taking proper care of their children, the child may face emotional problems. Criticism by grandparents or negative remarks or comparison with siblings, this is very common, almost common in every home. Even we have witnessed this during our childhood, that grandparents compare the children with their elder sibling or younger sibling. See how he is good in studies, he is good in academics, he is good looking, he is thin, and see you, look at you, you are obese, and you don't study, and you are so mustigore. And this kind of remarks, this kind of criticism can have a great impact on the mind of a child, and the child may face emotional issues. Then there are child related factors, where many a times child related factors are underrated. So as we have personality in adults, we have temperament in children. As we discussed with Dr. Priyanka, we have temperament in children. So there are different temperament, but certain temperament of children, this kind of temperaments are more prone for emotional problems. So which are the temperaments? Sensitive children, sensitive to criticism, sensitive to failures. They take everything personally. What we feel that they take everything personally, and this kind of sensitive children may get uh, emotional problems. Introvert children, children who do not mix with their peers, who fall, like to stay alone, who don't express their thoughts, feelings, emotions, who are not very expressive. They don't like. They keep everything in there with themselves, and because of this, they may face emotional problems. They may go through depression, anxiety. Lagging behind in studies, learning disability, poor understanding of subjects. Many a time when the parents bring their child to us for poor academic performance, while talking to the child, we understand, we come to know that the child had been facing this problem in studies or in academics since a long time, since say 3 years, 4 years, and he's not able to cope up with the studies because he's having a genuine problem of learning disability or ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But because of these problems, he's always compared with other children. He's always criticized for his poor performance, and no one understands him. That is what the children tell us, that no one understands me. So, because of which the child is facing some emotional problems. Addictions. So, there is a two-way communication between addictions and emotional problem. Many a times, children who are who are facing emotional problems, they find their own method of healing those emotional problems by consuming addictive substances. Either it may be smoking, alcohol, cannabis, which is very common. Smartphone addictions, as we have discussed, is very common nowadays. So children find their own way of healing their emotions by going into addictions. And even if the child, because of peer pressure or because of some other reason, start some kind of addiction, this addictive substances, this psychotropic substances definitely have an impact on the child's emotion, and the child may face depression, anxiety if he's addicted to such kind of substances. Medical illnesses. Children who have chronic medical illnesses like sickle cell anemia, thalassemia, juvenile arthritis, juvenile diabetes, these children who are facing these problems and they have to regularly visit their doctors, they regularly do some investigations, consume medications. So see, these children are not able to cope up with the regular routine of their school or other activities, and because of which they may face emotional problems. Gender dysphoria. This is a new age problem. It was earlier also. Gender dysphoria is something which is normal. It is not abnormal. So we don't like gender identity problems are normal. Gender dysphoria is not normal. Gender identity problems are normal, and that has been legalized also nowadays. So a boy who thinks that being a boy, I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied, and I would like to be a girl. So this kind of dissatisfaction can lead to gender dysphoria. And children who are facing gender dysphoria, many a times they don't open up, and they face anxiety, depression, and all kinds of issues. And even if they open up to their family members, yeah, I'm having some gender problem, I'm having this kind of issues. Parents are not able to understand. Parents don't want to understand. Parents take them to different doctors in the hope that they might change their child's thinking. They might change the child's gender related thinking, and this leads to stress, anxiety, depression. So this gender dysphoria is again a stressful thing for the parents and children. School related factors, comparison, humiliation in school. Children who are hyperactive, they always face criticism because of their hyperactive nature. They tease children. They are very hyperactive. They don't concentrate in studies. They lag behind in studies, and they face humiliation. Um, Also, children who are left out of sports events or gatherings. Recently, many of us have read in on the Facebook or social media that children with mental retardation and autism, they were not included in the school dancing event or school picnic, and because of which they had to go through stress. So this was posted on social media. So this kind of children who are having autism, who are having mental retardation, not severe mental retardation, but borderline intelligence or mild mental retardation, who attend normal school up to a particular age, but because of their lack of understanding and lack of communication skills or other problems, they are not able to mix up with other children, like mix up like other children, and they are outcast from the routine school groups, because of which they have to face this kind of emotional problems. Groupism. Because of peer pressure, certain children with some odd characteristics, like a child who is not good in studies, a child who is not that good looking, who is not good in who doesn't have proper communication skills, may be outcast from a particular group. They have to face that criticism. Teasing and bullying. We have heard about ragging in college days, but even in school, teasing and bullying is very common. Senior children or classmates, even classmates, tease their fellow classmates, or they do bullying, because of which the child has to go through tremendous emotional problem. And many a times these children don't discuss this problem with the teachers and parents with the fear of being outcast from the school group. So that is why they keep on suffering and they have to face a lot of emotional problems. Child abuse is also many a times not properly screened, properly judged. And child abuse, the child has been facing sexual abuse, physical abuse, and because of which he may have emotional problems. All these whatever we have discussed were stressors, but ultimately all kinds of stress leads to chemical locha in the brain, chemical changes in the brain, and this particular chemical change in the brain leads to anxiety, depression, or other psychological problems. So this particular chemical serotonin, which is there in this interneuronal space, is responsible for anxiety, depression, and other kinds of neurotic disorders. There are varied symptoms of stress or anxiety like choking, palpitations, tremulousness, anxiety. So, what is anxiety? Children, fear is very common in children. Fear about ghosts, fear about thieves, fear about diseases is very common in children. Even separation anxiety, fear of getting separated from their near or loved ones, is very common from 8 months to 2 years. Fear of the monsters or ghosts is very common in preschoolers. But when there is a continuous threat or continuous real or imagined threat, so there is no threatful object outside, but there is a threatful object in the mind and it persists for a particular duration, then we call it as anxiety disorder, and this anxiety disorder needs psychological intervention. So, what are anxiety disorders? Anxiety disorders have a lot of subcategories, which include social anxiety disorder, separation anxiety, school phobia, panic, generalized anxiety, and specific phobia, which are very common in children. So, children with separation anxiety, there is separation anxiety, which is very common from 8 months to 2 years. But if it persists beyond 2 years, so we and if, it is more consistently present for 4 weeks in children or 6 months in adult. So we call it as separation anxiety disorder. These children have a fear of losing their near and dear ones. So out of this fear, they don't allow their near and dear ones to go away from their eyesight. They always want them near them, and out of this fear, they don't refuse to go to the school. They have nightmares. They have physical symptoms of anxiety. There is social anxiety. Children, many a times we have seen that children who face this problem, social anxiety, they are reluctant to go for elocution competitions. They are reluctant to participate in dance or other kind of events. And when the time comes for them to participate in such kind of events, they do all kinds of rehearsals. They practice a lot, and during the practice, they are very confident. They are very okay with that. But when the time comes for them to perform in front of others, they throw temper tantrums. They start crying. They have anxiety or panic episodes. So this children may face this social anxiety disorder. Selective mutism. Many a times children with selective mutism have failed to speak in specific social situations. They are comfortable with in other situations, but in particular situations, may it be school, class, or family gatherings, they are in particular situations they go mute, they stop talking, and this particular situation, if it persists for at least a month, then it is known as selective mutism, and it needs psychological intervention. Panic disorder, it is one of the categories of anxiety disorder where the anxiety comes in bouts. The child doesn't have anxiety throughout the day, but the anxiety comes in bouts. It is there for 10-15 minutes or half an hour or a few hours, and then there is anticipatory anxiety. But again, I'll have the same symptoms of anxiety. I'll again have a panic episode. So this particular situation is panic disorder. Agoraphobia, fear of closed spaces such as bathrooms, lifts, buses, so or crowded places. Also, this child is afraid of going to, because there is a fear that I'll get trapped. I'll not be able to get help in this particular situation. So they have panic episodes in these situations. Then generalized anxiety, free floating anxiety. Anxiety is present throughout the day, and the child is not able to concentrate in studies. He get easily fatigued. So this is generalized anxiety. Obsessive compulsive disorder is OCD. So children with OCD have repetitive thoughts and repetitive behaviors. So this is we have observed a lot of cases coming up in this COVID-19 pandemic when where there is a fear of contamination, fear of this COVID. So up to a certain level, we call it as normal. But when it crosses a particular threshold, we term it as obsessive compulsive disorder. So there are different types of OCD, like contamination and washing. Some children have obsessive doubt. So they have a doubt. So if they have read a particular page, but they tend to forget, they have a doubt that they have forgotten something. So they'll again turn back the page and they'll again start reading. So with this, the reading speed decreases. So this is obsessive doubts and repetitive checking or counting. Obsessive symmetry. Many children you must have seen that they keep their pen in particular position. They want their all the books and clothes to be kept in a particular order. So this is nothing but OCD, obsession of symmetry and compulsion of organizing. Obsessive blasphemous thoughts about sexual thoughts, religious thoughts, and compulsive praying can be there. Post-traumatic stress disorder is very common nowadays in this COVID-19 pandemic. People who have lost their near and dear ones, or people who have got this COVID infection, the children of at that particular home, they face this PTSD symptoms. In PTSD, the child has nightmares. The child witnesses this traumatic memories again and again. There is avoidance for those memories. There is intrusive thoughts, negative emotions, and anxiety or panic symptoms. So there is childhood depression, which is again many times undiagnosed. Children with all kinds of stressors, as we have discussed earlier, many times go through childhood depression. They fail to interact with other people. They lag behind in studies. Many times children also have suicidal thoughts, particularly after this incidence of the famous celebrity committing suicide. Many children have attempted suicide. They have come to us with the suicidal thoughts. They may not express them verbally, but they may express them through poems, drawings, or other methods, non-verbal methods of communication. Self-harm attempt, many times children who cut their forearms. If you observe a child, there are lots of superficial cuts on the forearm. So this is parasuicidal behavior. Or this we call it as a cry for help. That the child wants someone to intervene in his emotional problems. So he cuts that particularly his wrist or forearms, and he wants someone to intervene. Many times when you talk to these children, they tell us that I didn't intend to die, but I was not feeling so much of emotional pain. I was going through tremendous stress. I didn't know what to do, so I cut myself. So this kind of behavior can be observed in children. So I think now we'll move on to the management of emotional problems. Dr. Priyanka will be talking about the management of emotional problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for in-depth knowledge about the emotional problems and how best the parent can contribute, even the society and surrounding contributes to the emotional well-being of the children. And before we go ahead, we have one more poll. And I would request all of you to put the questions in Q&A session so that we will take after Priyanka ma'am's session. So the next question is, how do your child perceive you? Are you a friend to your child? Are you an instructor, or are you a teacher or a guide? How do the child perceive you when it comes to the interaction, when it comes to the understanding? Are you a friend to your child? Are you an instructor, or are you a teacher or a guide? So I would request all of you to answer, all the attendees to answer. So the results are 52% of the children of the parents who are here are considering them as a parent, as a friend, and 20% says they are instructor, and 28% are perceiving them as a teacher or a guide. So I would invite Priyanka ma'am to guide us, to guide all the parents how to deal with this emotional and which kind of parenting style will suit for your child in various situations.
Thank you. So, yes, I think the question that you had asked was about parenting. So, what kind of a parent do you want to be? So, the answers are very interesting. Multiple answers we have received. First, we'll just talk about, in short, the management of all the problems that we discussed right now. So, one thing is that since many of y'all are attending, you're actually becoming very aware. So, being aware is the first step actually. Just a minute, my computer. Yeah. So awareness is the first step, I would say, that being aware of problems. If you know it in your mind, then you can actually see it, right? So if such children are aware, hello, hello.
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So then in schools and colleges where there is this population of children who probably might be at risk, who have family history of depression or who have had problems in childhood. If there are counselors in school, then there can be screening in schools. And nowadays, I think in most of the schools, screening occurs because there are counselors. When patients come to us in the OPD, we usually talk to the child as well as the parents. We understand the child's point of view, the parents' point of view, and there has to be modification not only in the child's behavior or the treatment not only is of the child but also of the parents. So, family therapy and counseling is very, very, very essential. Spending time with the patient is essential. And if required, we give some medications if at all required. Okay, the next slide. Um, 1 minute, okay. Screen is not. I'll just start it again. 1 minute. Yeah. So another point is when the patient comes to us, we normally, when the child comes to us, after talking to him, after doing some assessments, what we do is we start with cognitive therapy and behavior therapy. Okay. So cognitive therapy is the therapy of the mind, basically understanding what is there in the mind, and if there are any problems in his thinking process, we help him to change the way he thinks or he views the situation. Okay. So cognitive restructuring is what we teach the child and his parents. As we discussed in the beginning, if there is a situation, if there is a problem that the child is facing, before responding to that problem, there is always a choice which the child or the parent has. I'll give you an example. We had a child in ninth standard who had failed in ninth standard, and he was suffering from depressive symptoms. He was going through depressive symptoms, which we just heard right now from Dr. Amit. So he felt very low. He knew that he had to repeat ninth standard because till eighth standard he was passed directly without marks. Nowadays the system is that way. So in ninth standard, suddenly there are many children who fail if they have academic problems. His academic problems in studies were never diagnosed till that time. When we spoke to the parents and the child, slowly we realized that the child has difficulty in maths. And when we went through it, why is it that he's not understanding maths? Is it because he's not studying? The reason was that he used to try a lot, but he had problems in grasping the concepts of maths, which we call learning disability. So when we realized that he had LD, we tried to do all the different techniques like remedial education. And along with that, the parents' motivation was also required. Because in the last 2 years, parents had started demotivating him on a large scale. They used to constantly criticize and taunt him that tu kabhi nahi sudrega, you never study, you're good for nothing. So essay comments used to come from the parents, the child revealed to us. And then slowly the parents' behavior towards the child started changing. The child was viewing the situation as hopeless. At one point of time, he was thinking of suicidal thoughts. He was thinking, if I'm not good in maths, I'm good in nothing. I can do nothing in my life if I'm a 10th standard failure or a 9th standard failure. So we did cognitive restructuring for the child where we told him to view the situation in a different way. If you're not able to study maths properly, there are different ways in which you can improve by taking help from people. And there is still 1 year more that you're getting to practice. So there are chances that you will improve. So with this positive outlook, there were a lot of changes. So this way we have to modify the thought process of the child. And as I said, a role of parents is very important. Parents, first of all, need to give them time. Parents need to help them express themselves. If the child is suffering from something, if he's very quiet, not talking much, you have to be alert that he's going through something. Be a listener. Listen to what the child wants to say. Don't jump to giving advice. Reassure the child in your own possible ways. Help the child if possible to cope with that particular problem. If it's a small problem, the parents can give a solution and then seek professional help. So, as I said, when the child comes to us, there are two types of counseling techniques. One is cognitive technique and the other is behavior technique. So, behavior therapy, the child is asked to make a schedule for himself. Slowly, we teach him relaxation exercises. We teach him to stay in the live in the moment. So, these are various relaxation exercises, various techniques which are particular for that particular problem. So why I'm telling activity scheduling is a patient with depression, a child who has depressive symptoms is not motivated to do anything at all. So when we make a schedule for him, slowly he achieves something. He makes bed for himself or he cooks, he helps his mother in cooking. He feels a little more proud about himself. He feels that I could at least do this much today. So I'll try the next thing also. So slowly that reinforcement comes from working towards his goals. So we just help him to work towards his goals. And along with medications, behavior therapy is and cognitive therapy is very useful. So this was about the management. This was not in details. I think in future there are going to be other sessions where detailed management will be discussed. After this, I think the poll question that we were discussing about parenting techniques, we'll go to that. So now first of all, everyone has seen Tare Zameen Pe, right? So you have seen the father in Tare Zameen Pe also. So if you remember the father in Tare Zameen Pe, I always used to feel scared of him. What kind of a father is he? He's always shouting. So there are these type of parents also. Everyone knows them. They are basically we find them like Hitlers. They're always dominating. So I hope you're not that kind of a parent because in the past, in the olden days, people used to believe that always being around the child with a rod will help the child straighten. Okay, so this was the expectation. This was the thought process of older people in the olden days. But currently things have changed, and we have aware of parenting styles. So there are different parenting styles. I'll just explain to you. One thing is the parent has to give the child warmth. He has to take into consideration the child's opinions, and this has to balance with discipline. So whenever there is a lot of warmth, there is a lot of warmth, but there is no discipline at all. Do whatever you want. I'm there with you. Kids are going to be kids. Let's enjoy. So that kind of an attitude. I'm your friend. मैं तुम्हारा दोस्त हूँ. हम मिलके खेलेंगे. पढ़ाई वढ़ाई नहीं करना है मत करो. So yes, I've seen this attitude. So that becomes a permissive type of parenting. Now, in permissive parenting, what happens? There is lots of love from the parents. There are a lot of rewards that the child always gets. Permissive parents do try to set some limits. कि तुम पढ़ाई करो तो फिर तुम्हें टीवी देखने को मिलेगा. This is the limit that is set, but it's never followed. The child says, जाने दो ना पापा, अभी मुझे टीवी देखना है, बाद में पढ़ाई करूंगा. ठीक है बाबा, देख ले टीवी. So this is what happens. So when this happens, what happens is the child loses focus. So this is the kind of parenting this is permissive parenting that we are talking about. In this, what happens? The child does not have any goal in his life. He is indecisive about his goals, about his future, about small decisions also. He doesn't know whom to turn to because parents are also very parents are giving answers, but very most of the time they agree with the child. Okay, so he is confused. He does not have goals. His career achievements are poor, and he loses self-esteem. Okay, so there is a self-esteem which has no meaning because along with self-esteem, the confidence through achievements is not there to match it. So this kind of parenting is permissive. Now the Tare Zameen Pe parenting that I was talking about was authoritarian, where there is a lot of discipline. There is only discipline. As you can see here, expectations and control is very high. My way or the highway. Okay, so this kind of parenting is authoritarian. In this kind of parenting, what happens is the parent says, I'm ordering you to do something, you have to do it that way. I'm ordering you to choose this career. You have to choose this career because I am telling you to do so. There are no reasons told. So then what happens is the child initially is very obedient, but he feels suffocated. And at one point of time when he grows up, he starts becoming disobedient and defiant. Okay, so defiant, and he starts becoming rebellious. Here also, there are chances of the child developing depression or the child developing low self-confidence. The third type is neglectful, where both parents don't have time for the child. Both parents are working probably. Grandparents might be taking care of the child, or the child is taken care of by a maid, but the child is not given attention, enough attention. So the child grows without the attention and nurture of the parents. He gets money to get whatever he wants, but he is confused, he is indecisive, he again has less career achievements, he gets into wrong company because there is no one to guide him. So the guiding figures might be wrong. He doesn't know whom to look up to. Okay, so the role models that he prepares in his mind are wrong people. He might enter addiction also. I mean, he might get into a circle where there are a lot of addicts. So unfortunately, his career trajectory and everything, his life trajectory is disturbed. And the best kind of parenting is authoritative parenting. So authoritative parenting has both. Okay, 1 minute. Authoritative parents are both disciplinarians also. At the same time, they respect the opinions of children. So they are authoritarian parents. I think, sorry, authoritative parents. I think there is the computer is no, it's hung. I think so. What we'll do is I'll just explain to you. So authoritative parents are respect the opinions of children. At the same time, they are able to give discipline. Okay, set rules which are followed. So they are not friends of children. They guide children in the right way. Okay, so these children are happy, energetic. They have goals in front of them. They know whom to turn to when they have problems. They know they can express themselves when they have problems. And when they have problems and when they express themselves, even if they are wrong, parents don't react. ये तुमने क्या किया? तुमने चोरी किया? 10 रुपया तुमने उसके बैग से उठाया? How can you do this? You're such a liar. You're such a thief. These reactions are never there from the mouth of authoritative parents. They guide children. See, today you have not done something that is right. Henceforth, I will not allow this kind of behavior from you. This is assertiveness from parents. Whereas in authoritarian parents who are Hitlers, what they do is they react, and then with time the children stop telling them the truth. Children become good liars. Okay, so this is the difference. There were some good pictures, but I think I'm not able to show. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next part, that is about parenting. Further points about parenting I'll tell you. So I have made a little short form of parent. Okay, so you can follow it and always remember it. Okay, this could be a guide for parents. So P stands for participation. Okay, so participate, that is get involved in the child's life to some extent. Know his whereabouts, know whom he talks to, know what he is studying, how much he has achieved, how he is feeling. This is what a parent needs to know. But at the same time, don't be over involved, especially if the child is an adolescent, a teenager. Some space the child wants for himself. Sometimes when he's talking to his friends, he doesn't want his family members to be around and prying on him. Okay, so too much involvement, nagging is wrong, but some amount of involvement, participation is essential. At the same time, along with being involved, I would tell parents should be evolved also. There should be smart parents, because generation is a smart generation, using smartphones, using all apps, Instagram, Facebook, everything is used even by kids. So parents should be aware of Instagram. Parents should be aware of all the apps. If they keep up with this, then they'll be able to know what the child is doing, what sites he's viewing. Otherwise, the child will take you for a ride. He'll make a fool out of you. Okay, so be evolved also. A would stand for be an active listener. Active listener, listen to what the child wants to tell you, what the problems are. He'll open up to you if you don't react properly. Communication pattern at home has to be constructive. When you're talking to your wife, or when the wife is talking to you, use constructive words, use positive words, encourage each other, not discourage each other, abuse each other. Also be open, express your successes as well as failures at home. If you are a mother or if you're a father of a child, talk about your failures. If you only talk about your successes, child will feel I'll never be able to reach that level. feel little underconfident. So talk about you. Hello. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Was I audible all this time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I was saying the parents should talk about their failures also and how they dealt with the failures. That also they need to talk about. Okay. So what will happen is if the parent talks about his failures, the child will know how to. One minute, huh? Can I stop share? Can you stop the sharing? I'm not able to stop share. Hello. Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. We are trying.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said, parents, if they discuss about their failures and how they dealt with the failures, children will know. Children will know how to cope up with failures. Okay, right? Am I audible? Can I talk? 1 minute, huh? I'll just.
Yeah, ma'am.
Hello. Sorry. Yeah. So, the next point that is R. So, for example, hello.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Sorry. Uh, okay.
We can hear you.
So yeah. So for example, okay, I told you about this. How to cope with situations can be also taught to children by the way you behave and cope with problems. The next would be R, that is role modeling. Okay, so we are all very good role models in front of our children, but we have to try to be good role models because children are like sponges. They absorb everything. Our good behaviors and our bad behaviors are modeled by them. Unknowingly, they are passively learning. So good behaviors, helping each other, cooperation, adjusting with each other. At the same time, limiting mobile use, limiting addiction at home in the form of alcohol and cigarettes, avoiding abusing each other. These things are easily picked up by children. So they have to be controlled by parents. At the same time, how to deal with problems, how to take help from people, that also can be modeled to children. Okay. The next thing is evaluate your child. So when I talk about parent, P-A-R-E, E stands for evaluate your child. What is evaluate your child? Evaluate in the sense, know your child basically. Whether he has problems, whether he really genuinely has any problems, or he's just fooling you. Okay, so whether he probably has problems like learning disorder, or he has problems that he's not able to concentrate in studies, or he is emotionally disturbed. These are the problems that we've discussed. So if these are the problems, we can definitely take help and evaluate yourself. So probably you are losing temper easily. There are chances that you are getting angry very fast. I had a parent coming to me for advice. She used to get very angry with her preschooler who used to make her run around like anything and he used to throw tantrums. She started hitting him. When spoken to her, she used to hit him so much. When asked her, she said there are problems between me and my husband and I'm feeling very low nowadays. I'm feeling very irritable and chidchida. So that's why I'm taking out anger on my child. So this is what I say, evaluate yourself also. The next thing is, and of course, do stress management for yourself. The next point would be nurture values in your children, like teach them empathy, teach them what the other person would feel if you do this, teach them other good values which have morals. So a little older children do understand this. That is N. And the next is T. T is a very important investment for your child, that is teach life skills. So what are life skills? Life skills are those skills which are essential for survival in the child. So for survival, each child needs to be taught certain things right from childhood so that he becomes independent, he becomes emotionally intelligent, not just intelligent in studies. Because he has to adjust in his careers, in his job place, after marriage. So if he knows how to control himself, his mood swings, if he knows how to do emotional regulation, that is the best gift that you can give your child. Okay, so there are some easy tips that I can give you to control, to help develop these life skills. So one of them is teaching them organization and teaching them how to follow routine. What happens when a child organizes himself and follows a routine, that is a routine time of getting up, of eating, of studying, of cleaning his house, of helping his mother. This is a routine that you could set for your child. If your child is very obedient, most of the children listen. There are only few children who don't listen, but most of the children are obedient. They listen to what the parents tell. So if you set this in front of him, if you give them a routine, they'll know how to control their emotions. कि मुझे 1 hour के लिए पढ़ना है. I cannot get up from my place. I have to help my mother for 1 hour. I have to do this particular activity for an hour, as my mother has told. So they will control their other urges of getting up, calling their friends, of playing. So this is how you teach them how to do self-control. Ask them, as I said, be an interested adult. When the child is talking, pay attention. What happens is slowly his communication skills also will improve, especially for a small child. And the next is critical thinking. He needs to think solutions. He needs to think of answers for himself. He can't be dependent on people to get answers, right? So through role play, for example, giving him situations. To a small child, for example, घर में अगर आग लगती है तो what will you do? The child will say, I'll become a fireman, I'll come up, I'll extinguish the fire. कुछ तो answer आपको मिलेगा. But that will stimulate his thinking process. Okay? So that kind of environment, if it's at home also, his critical thinking will improve. And the next important thing is helping him take small risks. Risks कैसे लेगा child? For example, teaching him to ride the bicycle. Nowadays, parents are very afraid because of the traffic on the road. But at least to some extent, for a short distance, you can allow the child to ride the bicycle. So let him also face the traffic to some extent. Along with that, ask him to play games, outdoor games if possible. There also he'll learn the sportsmanship spirit and at the same time taking risks while playing also. So these small risks have to be taken, have to be taught to children. After that is making decisions. Help children to make small decisions, take small decisions like choosing the food that you want in a hotel, choosing clothes that you want to wear today. So these small things, if you help the children to take decisions for, it'll enable them, it'll empower them in future to take bigger decisions, to take some challenges and to be more resilient. What is resilient? Being able to get up from failures and fight back. Okay, so failure is okay. When a child fails, you tell him that it's fine. You're learning more through this failure. And another very important thing is ask a child to explore his environment. Okay, give him opportunities, give him puzzles, give him activities so that he can think and explore. This will help him increase his love for learning. So he doesn't have to mug up. If he's able to explore by his own, take him outside in the nature, ask him to look at the flowers and plants, or give him some games where he has to think and learn. These activities help increase his love for reading, studying, learning more. Take him to the library. So these things will help him motivate himself to learn. Okay. So this is self-directed learning. Normally what we do in schools, teachers tell us, you have to study for the exams, so we study. That should not happen. The child should feel like studying. So all these things can help him increase his love for learning. So this was the total parent advice in short that I've given you, whatever we could cover right now. And thank you so much. We could go for the question answers.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you very much, Amit sir, for the detailed discussion on childhood emotion. We have started right from the development of the emotion, then the emotional problems, and coming towards how parents can play a role, the parenting style, and very well explained the full form of parent. I believe that that's excellent tips for the attendees. Ma'am, we have many questions here. So to start with, since we were talking about parenting, hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So there is a question: if there is a difference of opinion between the parents to manage single child, they have different styles of parenting, or they may be having different opinion about the single issue with the single child. So how to manage that?
Okay. Yeah. So I understood your question. So first of all, if there are differences of opinion, respect them because differences of opinion are going to be there. Okay, if there are two different people, differences of opinion in raising the child are going to be there, even in the husband and wife. Even if you are separated, that doesn't mean you're not parents of the child. So we have to come to a balance. You have to come to a balanced conclusion of dealing of what is best for the child. Okay. So sometimes adjustment also works in this situation. So some things that you are doing or something that the husband suggests could be used, and some advice that the mother is giving, that could be applied, and together a better plan can be devised. I think if the problem is known, we could guide them better. So there are
Yes.
different problems. So, but I think coming to a balance, striking a balance between the choices of both is the best. And adjustment. So this time, if the husband, whatever the husband says is more effective, the wife could at least take a step back.
Right. Hello. Yeah, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Because they are separated. Okay. So one of them could take a step back this time and give the other person a chance. Whatever is best for the child.
Okay.
Hmm.
Ma'am, there is one more question talking about a child who's 8 years old, but the child is still have the phobia to move from one room to other room without any help, or maybe he needs somebody's presence to move from one room to other room. So, what could be the reason and how to manage it?
So what happens is when children have this phobia of moving from one room to another room from childhood, as we know, small children are scared of the dark, which is very common. But probably this child has developed phobia only. It is a learning process. He has always taken his parents to move from one room to another. So he knows that I always have someone there to take me to the other room. So he is not able to come out of this fear, and now it's fixed. By the age of 8 years, this phobia has become fixed. Now, to unlearn all this, what we normally do is desensitization, is what we use. Okay, so for phobia, this is the technique that we use. After counseling the child and exposing him to small situations, less tough situations, and then exposing him to more tough situations. For example, what parents can do in this situation is, for a short distance, you can accompany him and then ask him to go ahead. Okay. Initially, you can ask him to switch on the lights and then go. Okay. And then you ask him to go to the other room with the lights off. I know it's a very tough thing, but you have to start doing it. You have to start facing the situation. Otherwise, the phobia will be more and more fixed by the time he grows up, and then it will be very embarrassing. So, right now itself, you have to face the fearful situation. And if that's not happening, you can take the help of counselors or psychiatrists or doctors.
Right. Ma'am, there is a next question which talks about in the current situation, even the government, everybody, there is a norms of washing the hands. Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
So washing hands become the new norm. But the girl of 10 years, she has developed the habit of washing the hands and the surface again and again. At times, she washes the hand 10 times in 5 minutes. So, what do you call it, and how to manage about
See, this, if she's washing 10 times in 5 minutes, and this has been present for a long time, it's definitely affecting her routine, and it's intruding on her overall education and other areas also. So we call it obsessive, these are obsessive symptoms, obsessive and compulsive symptoms, and it's a part of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So normal norms of washing hands for 20 minutes or 20 seconds have to be explained to her. So sometimes there are myths in the minds of children. Try and explain the facts to the child. That is one thing. And normally in our OPD, what we do for such children, we explain to them exposure and response prevention. That is exposing to that situation. If she has touched somewhere, we ask them touch that place and then wash only once. She'll feel very restless after that. She might want to wash it again and again, but we ask them to control that urge. It's not easy. So normally for OCD, medicines are used along with treatment, along with counseling. Medications are quite essential for OCD, and they are safe. Even in children, in some children, I have had to use some medicines, and they have improved. And in COVID pandemic only, there are kids who have come with these complaints of excessive washing and fear of contamination. So this seems to be OCD only.
right, ma'am? And there is a boy who's in 12th. He's very good in the academics, but the complaint of a mother that the child wants to be alone all the time. He likes to sit in the room all alone and for entire day, and he's having very less social interaction.
So this boy is good in academics. That is a different area. But now, if he's alone totally, that means there is something going on in his mind. That is for sure. Probably we normally think of things like depression in this particular situation, or there is another entity called bipolar depression. Okay, so these things need to be explored. We need to talk to the child. If there are any other psychiatric issues that are going on, that also we need to explore. If there are any problems at home, we need to find that out. So this child needs to be evaluated, because if he is sitting alone in his room for such a long time, something is definitely wrong. Okay, he's not socializing. There is something in his mind which he's not able to tell anyone. He probably might not even tell anyone.
Okay.
So so best to get him evaluated. Yes.
So there is one more question, ma'am. The mother is asking a question for 7-year-old boy, and she's saying that due to lockdown and not mingling with the friends and colleagues, the child is losing the confidence, and at times he stammers, which was not usual before the lockdown.
Yeah, so stammering also, is anxious basically. So we just heard about anxiety, and after a long time, after a long gap of not being able to meet people in person,
Hmm.
these problems can start arising. Anxiety disorders can be seen in many people. Social anxiety. So in social situations, the child must be stammering initially, which was never there before. This, if anxiety and counseling is done for this child, there could be changes in his behavior. So this also, stammering also is a representation of his underlying anxiety and fears of meeting new people. So this
Right.
could be the reason. Yeah.
There is a question, ma'am, how to handle the kids who are extremely sensitive to criticism. I believe we have spoke about resilience, but if you can have the precise answer for it.
Extremely sensitive to criticism, is it there from childhood that we need to find out? I mean, is it there from before, or has it recently come up? That we need to understand. If it is a recent event that he's nowadays sensitive to criticism, then it should alert us to think about causes of that, whether there are any problems in school, or sometimes there are children who are overweight, when someone has criticized them, and then they keep thinking about that. Or is it present from before? So if he is always sensitive to criticism, then we have to develop his skills of understanding that criticism is good for you. So this basically will require a lot of counseling for the child, because it's now that he needs to understand that criticism is not always bad. Okay, and you take criticism in a positive way, you take it in a constructive way, you take it as a challenge. Okay, so if anyone is criticizing you for any quality, bad quality of yours, everyone has good qualities and bad qualities. So accept it along with people who praise you. So definitely people might be praising you, and if parents are not praising him, then I would advise parents to praise him intermittently, and explain to him that criticism is something which helps us grow into better people. So that could help him.
There is one more question. I believe there are multiple questions. I'll club into one. That the current time of lockdown has increased the screen time and the exposure to the digital gadgets, and at times and or many times that is changing the behavior of the child. So they are getting angry. They are getting very rebellious. So, is there any relation? And if it is, how to manage that?
So excessive gadget exposure, there are multiple problems that are created because of that. First of all, now we are not socializing, so children find this as the easiest way to spend their time. Now, what happens is when they enter from the virtual world into the real world, there are many unexpected changes. In the virtual world, everything is nice, happy, or it's exciting. And in the real world, once again, there are different challenges. So this change can provoke frustration in them. The other thing is excessive gadget use because of watching a lot of aggressive games also can promote aggression and irritability in children. And as I said, gadget use, as Dr. Amit also has said, gadget use can be a defense of their underlying problems, because they don't want to face their problems. They might have turned to gadget use. So that also can be a sign of underlying mood swings. Okay, because of which he is using gadgets excessively, because he wants to avoid his emotional problems also. So such children might already be very moody, and they might get very angry and irritable. Now what happens is gadgets are are definitely addicting. Okay, so they do have an impact that alcohol and cigarette have on our brains. So when the child is using gadgets, and slowly it has increased since the last 3 4 months to such an extent, probably he has become addicted to it, addicted to the internet and games, or any other area that he's using. So if this device that is causing addiction is suddenly taken away, then the child gets very angry. So the way you are reacting to when a child is using this mobile, that also matters. If you're suddenly taking it away, then that creates anger because he's suddenly lost that one thing. And then what happens is excessive craving comes for that particular object, and he throws episodes, outbursts of anger. That is one thing. And so gadget use has to be monitored. Definitely, you have to take breaks. You have to set limits to children. Younger children especially will listen. Older children, adolescents probably might become angry and rebellious. In this case, also sometimes counseling is required. And if there's too much aggression, then medicines also might be required. Okay, so he is not feeling interested in his studies. He's not feeling interested in his routine activities because of gadgets. And because he was prior not interested in his routine activities, now gadgets has been an escape mechanism for him. Very serious concern, has to be tackled. If he's having mood swings, it's very serious.
So there are last two questions, ma'am. One is again related to the gadgets and digital exposure. There is a daughter, the girl of 5 years, and she has become she is seeking attention during all these e-classes. Whatever the classes she is attending, she is disturbing the teachers and trying ways and means to seek the attention and spotlight all the time.
Okay, if it's a 5 year child, and definitely online classes are not suitable for everyone, especially younger children. So if she has always been a very playful and very active child, otherwise also, then there are chances that she cannot sit still in the online class. So if the online class is for half an hour, 1 hour, this hyperactive, probably she's hyperactive, so she's very chanchal. So such children cannot sit in front of the screen for they can sit in front of the screen watching songs and videos, but when there is teaching and when there is a monotonous activity going on, they will not be able to focus. So her focus is disturbed. Okay, she's not able to focus and be attentive, and she's very hyperactive probably from what you're telling. So she's disturbing the class also. Okay, so this kind of a child needs to be asked questions in between by the teacher. I mean, online classes it's not possible, but if the mother is around, she has to make it very interesting for the child to help her focus. And along with that, then sometimes occupational therapy is required. Considering the other problems that the child has, occupational therapy or medicines to improve concentration also might be required in some cases. But here, I think make the online lecture very interesting. Ask questions in between. Take breaks from the online class if possible. That will help her.
And the last question, ma'am, we have spoke about the normal emotions development, even the problems and few behavioral aspect as well. So, but still there is an inertia uh, that people in India still they have the inertia to go to psychiatrist, and especially for the kids. So, your word of advice and how we can change the perception and bring them to the reality.
So I think behavioral problems and emotional problems are increasing. We have one child or two children. Okay, earlier days it used to be four children, three children. So people used to not understand what each child is going through. But now parents have time enough to understand what a child might be going through. And if we are doing everything for the child, if we want an overall development of the child, then the most important aspect of his life, that is his emotions, if they are ignored, if his behavior is ignored, then what is the use of all the achievements that he has done, right? So I think the most important thing is his mind. And there are any problems you feel in his mind is just a part of the body. Brain is a part of the body, and mind is inside the brain somewhere. Okay, so if you think there are problems after attending so many sessions, you're realizing that the child is not behaving in a normal way. If you don't take treatment, the problems will increase. In future, he'll suffer from something because of the stigma that in childhood I should not take him to a psychiatrist or doctor. You are actually taking a risk, because the child will, it will affect everything. It will affect his selection of career, it will affect his relationships in future, it will affect his understanding of subjects at this moment also, because all these problems of childhood, they affect studies ultimately. And recently, unfortunately, we have heard of many children also suffer going through depression and even committing suicide. So when we know of all the risks, I think it's best to take steps immediately. So if you feel that there are any changes in his behavior, there is no shame in going to a doctor, going to a psychiatrist. Okay, and visit your pediatrician first. He'll also guide you what to do.
So thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for all your answers. And I believe the time is very difficult for all of us. We are going through a different pandemic period, and the emotional disturbances and are increasing. You need more support for each other and attention to emotion. The series is committed to bring different emotions to you. In the next session, we are going to talk about the anger and anxiety, and all of you are requested to join with the same link on next Thursday at 7 p.m. And it's a recurrent link where you can do that. And the message which ma'am has given regarding the parent and the full form of it, the P is play, participate with kids. A is activity, scheduling or routine setting. R is role modeling. E is educate them and limit the entertainment devices and exercise, and is stay away from negative thoughts and habits and news. T is time, spend quality time with the children. If you can follow these 6 steps, I believe it will be helpful for all of us. And I would again thank all of you from I Am the Best Mom team to attend this session. And few questions, if you have specific questions, you can send us on info@cognitely.com. So we will be happy to answer those questions.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.